George Washington. Rookie Biographies, George Washington, by Will Mara. Table of Contents. Meet George Washington. George Washington helped the United States become a free country. He was also the nation's first president. Washington is known as the father of our country. George Washington was born in Virginia. George Washington was born in Virginia on February 22nd, 1732. His family had a large farm. George was a soldier when he was young. A soldier is someone who fights for his or her country. Fast fact, when he was 26 years old, George married Martha Custis. At first, America was an English colony. It was ruled by the King of England. Many Americans did not like this. They wanted America to be a free country. George was one of these people. Washington was chosen to lead American troops in a war against England. The fight for freedom. In 1775, the American colonies went to war with England. George was in charge of the American army. He was a general. Washington was one of America's best soldiers. The English army had more soldiers than the American army. Their soldiers had been in many wars before. They were sure they would win this one. The English soldiers wore red coats. The Americans wore blue. The leader of England's army told Washington, "We give up." Most of the Americans had never fought in a war, but George was a good general. His soldiers fought hard for him. America won the war in 1781. The country was free at last. Fast fact, George had fake teeth. Many people think they were made of wood, but they were actually made of ivory. A new start. America had to start its own government. A government is a group of people that runs a country. America's leaders met to talk about the new government. George was a hero in America. Many people wanted him to be the country's first president. He was elected in 1789. After the war, crowds of people came out to watch George Washington parade through the streets. President Washington. President George Washington worked with other leaders to write laws for the new nation. A law is a rule that people have to follow. America's leaders worked together to make laws for the country. President Washington put together the first Supreme Court. The court is made up of people who study and explain the laws of the nation. This is a photo of the Supreme Court building today. Front and back of the first American money. Front and back of American dollar from 2013. Before the war, Americans used English money. President Washington wanted America to have its own money. The leaders of the country worked together to create the new money. Washington, D.C., Washington Monument. The president got to decide where the nation's capital would be. That is, where the government is located. He picked the place that is known today as Washington, D.C. Fast fact, Washington never lived in Washington, D.C. When he was president, New York City and later Philadelphia were the nation's capitals. Today, people can visit George Washington's house. People wanted Washington to continue as president for many years, but he wanted to go home to his farm and his family. In 1797, he went back to Virginia. He died there 2 years later. Timeline of George Washington's life. 1732, born on February 22nd. 1775 to 1781, leads American troops in war against England. 1789, becomes America's first president. 1797, leaves the presidency to go back to Virginia. 1799, dies on December 14th. A poem about George Washington. He led our fight for freedom, then led the USA. It's thanks to brave George Washington we can live free today. You can be a leader. You can set a good example for others by always trying to do what you think is right. Do not be afraid to stand up for what you believe in, even if others say you are wrong. Glossary. Colony. A place that is settled by people from another country. General. A soldier of very high rank who leads other soldiers. President. The elected leader of a country. War. A fight between two or more groups of people. Index. Facts for now. About the author. Will Mara is the award-winning author of more than 140 books, many of which are educational titles for children. The end.